Sure.
Who's driving? Oh, that's downstairs. Well, we don't have an intro yet, but welcome to... That's pretty bright.
It's hard to look at.
Yeah, welcome to the Good Pain Podcast.
Welcome to the Good Pain Podcast.
This is...
Pump yourself up, son.
There we go. This will be the voice of the cast. You call them casts? Is that cool? Or you call them pods? Anyway, this will be episode 1.
Project Pilot.
Yeah. I recorded another one already, which will be number 2. And then we'll just throw an intro of some sort in there. But yeah, we threw up a setup and we're going to talk about some stuff because we've been wanting to talk about some stuff. Well, I have. This is kind of born, just to kind of frame why we're doing it. This is kind of, at least for me, it's born out of just whenever James and I drive somewhere, or Jaden, like it always, well, Jaden's a bit more like we might do music and or just quiet, but
slightly more surface.
Yeah, me and James always end up having like big, good conversations. Not always big, but just good conversations while we're driving places. And we're always at the end of it. We're always like, man, that would have been a great podcast to listen. Anyway, so
hope you enjoy our conversation.
Yeah. So here we are, risking getting sick of our own voices, I guess, because I'm gonna have to rewatch this and listen to it.
I'm gonna have to listen to it to judge myself. So.
Yeah. So here we are. All right, let's talk about some stuff. I think that might be the tagline. I thought of that before, actually. But
let's talk about some stuff.
Let's talk about stuff. Or some stuff? Let's talk about stuff? I don't know. Something like that.
Let's talk about pain. Seems like the cliche direction.
So that was the other kind of... the other part of the story to get us to where we're at. The first episode was recording with an athlete of mine where we were talking about this running adventure they had done, and then her name's Ty Gordon, she's from Lloydminster, and she approached me and was like, she kind of was like, Joedy, I want to hear your thoughts on pain. Like, she was like, I would even interview you. And I was like, I like that idea, but I think a better person to talk about pain than me would be James. So immediately I thought of him for this. And so I've been thinking about that. So then I've been kind of fielding questions, looking for things people might want to know about pain. So we'll talk about pain, and then that was where that episode was the idea. And then when I was thinking about what would I name a podcast if I was to host one, I didn't want to do it too like runner related, because
diversity, yo.
Yeah. And for people that know me, they know that I'm interested in a lot of things outside of running. So I didn't want to limit myself to like just talking about running. But I think that pain is such a kind of mainstay part of life. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, so sometime along the lines in the past few months, this idea of good pain came up. And so that's the name.
Do you have the definition
of good pain?
Well, pain and then its relationship to good?
I do not. We need to produce it. Hey, bring that up. Jamie, bring that up. I don't even have my phone.
Mine just died.
Tech.
Yeah, I can get the work digits here. This starting to work. No. My kids manage to type things into the dictionary all the time. I don't know how they do it. They just touch the screen and then they're typing into the dictionary.
You're gonna have a bigger vocab than you in like a couple years.
I don't know how to do it.
What are you trying to do?
The search thing? That's the app library. Technology. Pain. Pain, it's a noun. Highly unpleasant physical sensation caused by illness or injury. Mental suffering or distress. The pain of loss. Also pain in the neck. Informal or annoying, tedious person or thing. Pains, great care or trouble. She took pains to see that everyone ate well. As a verb, cause mental or physical pain too. It pains me to say this. Or her legs have been paining her. Part of the body hurt. North American. Okay.
I feel like we should define it ourselves. Those were fine, but
It's good to have a benchmark.
Yeah, to me it sounds like pain is feedback for something that's going away from homeostasis, if we use like the bodily.
I would call it a mental reaction to a physical experience of more than discomfort. Because I was talking with a friend about eating and fasting and stuff this week, and they're like, well, I know to eat because my stomach hurts. And I was like, does it hurt though? It's just your brain telling you that it's hurt. If you think about what you typically think of as hunger in your pain in your stomach as pain, if you change that to your stomach is resetting its microbiome, then maybe when you eat too much turkey dinner, you feel pain. Like full can be pain if you let your brain think that way. And if you think that hunger, pain, as we typically think about it, is just a healthy part of resetting your digestive system, then it doesn't bother you as much. Just like and then we can get into pain tolerances. So some people, dad can handle a tremendous amount of pain, or at least he says he can. Whereas, mom can't have a sliver.
Yeah. Kind of connected to that, and that's true for our parents, but I don't know if it was a clip from a podcast or something, but they were saying that typically people that have a higher pain tolerance also, I don't know if correlation causation, but they also love spicy food.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Because it's interesting that that's at least correlated. And I've just asked a few people that I know that have high pain tolerances, and they're like, love spicy food. And I'm like, well, there you go.
Because if you break that spice down, it's a physical pain in your mouth. I've thought about that with pop for years. Why do you drink it? Like, the carbonation actually hurts. But we drink it. Is it because of our reaction to the sugar, or do we have an addiction to the pain?
Well, that's a little bit of that topic, the addiction to pain part. I think that's probably like a podcast that needs
you need to have all sorts of stuff on here. You gotta have
I'm sure we'll
interview someone off the streets, find out what real pain is.
Well, actually, like I've listened to podcasts where talking about addiction, and it is sometimes like when it becomes something that and so it becomes a comfort, even though it's painful.
Comfort in pain.
And I think in trail running,
we do that too.
We do that all
Frickin'
the time.
junkies.
Right? And I think that I think that and hopefully we'll swing around to this, I think, part that's really important about that, like, pursuit of pain, because that pain is comfortable, because I think the other thing about it is that we can control it. So there's like controlled pain or controllable pain, and then that uncontrolled pain with that
ordered pain and chaos pain.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, that's something that I have noted down in my notes to talk about, and we'll get there in a little bit. But yeah, the kind of connection, drawing the lines from life pain and to running pain. And
is it pain at all?
We'll save the philosophy for the later stages when less people are listening. not the first 30 minutes.
Stay tuned. Yeah. For the philosophical
if you want to
debate
be here for
what
the metaphysical,
is it even pain?
Is this chair even here? Then hang on. But yeah, drawing that line from like life or like life pain that kind of more happens to us, and then versus like trail running, especially in the ultra world, is like a pursuit of, like, you're planning out that pain, you know it's going to happen, you still go into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in kind of, it's planned and you're in control of it, and how that experience within that ordered pain helps you when that chaotic pain or that unplanned pain comes into your life unexpectedly. That's kind of a bridge I want to tackle in this conversation.
All right.
Anyway, let's
Introduce yourself.
Let's introduce ourselves. If you found this podcast, you probably know who either me or
Hi,
James
Mom.
are. Yeah. What's up, Mom? Hope you had a good day at work. Enjoy your evening. I'm Joedy. I'm the youngest of the three Dalke. Well, there's lots of Dalke brothers in the world, but the youngest of the three Dalke
Our
brothers.
particular clan.
Yeah. To Roger and Arlene. This is my oldest brother, James. And then we have a middle brother, Jaden. And we like to dabble pretty heavily in trail and ultra
Recreational trail running.
and that's something that we thoroughly enjoy doing. And James is married, has some little kiddos running around. What else do they want to know? What's the pertinent details for this part?
I don't know. You didn't write me a flattering intro.
Yeah.
That I could
Let me intro
shoot back at you.
Let me intro you to the guest at 10 minutes in. Yeah, James is my oldest brother, so big fan of the guy. He is also, I would say, one of the many premier ultra runners in Western Canada. And if he's on a start line, he's like gonna be chasing that podium, I think, is fair to say. All that within living a busy life of being a dad and, buying a house and renovating a house and doing all of those additional things that take away from your ability to train hard. I would say that we are kind of in the lower mileage side of trail running. Where
There are things that I'm better at than running, and luckily one of them makes me money. So I tend to spend a fair amount of time doing that.
Yeah, his mileage is split between other things that are very important to him. And he is a graphic designer and very talented in that. And with vinyl, he's a bit of a magician. So if you need vinyl work for advertising or car wrap.
You're supposed to just say he raps things, and then people think I'm way cooler. Turn my hat sideways.
Let's go. He's a big rapper. So. Yeah, that's something that I'll write out in the future for so I can do a nice, smooth guest intro. Sorry for that.
Take note from the bomb hole.
Yeah, true. Maybe I'll have to splice in some like clips of him winning races or something. Just kidding. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, and this is Joedy, you know, he's the head coach over and only coach and curator of all things Attitude Over Altitude.
I'll do my best.
Buy a sweater today. Discount code Good Pain.
Yeah.
And he's also very accomplished in the both short trail and long trail scene. It's got a lot of faster times than myself, so.
Yeah. And I would try to overshadow that with that we have a lot of fun racing.
Yeah, I don't feel like we're ever looking for the pain out there. Like if you think about people who suffer, like really suffer, I know I suffered. I finished a race and it's like if it's like the hardest thing, like it was super hard. You know, you emptied your tank and you reached your potential in it, but also it was mostly fun.
Yeah. Like
doing something hard, as I hesitate to say effortlessly as possible, but and you know,
well, I
doing it well.
Yeah.
Like I see people. Well, you have a little bit more of a blister problem, but like when I see people who do like 6 hours on loony-sized blisters on their feet, no way.
Yeah.
Like I can probably count on both hands the amount of blisters I've had in my entire running career, and yeah, I don't know. Like, or I'll have like a nerve pinch or something in my hip, and it's just like that. I like, what do you like? I can't.
Yeah.
I'm a wiener. So I don't know how that plays into managing pain.
Yeah.
It's like a fear of pain, like a fear of failure, fear of pain. You walk the line.
I was gonna say, I think that often, like, and we've been told this, but people have told us like it looks like it's effortless, which it never is. It hurts so much. But I think because we also have that kind of like pursuit of fun, even at races where we're trying to be on the podium or like run fast, like we're still having a good time, so it doesn't come across as like this grimacing struggle bus for the most part. I've seen playback from me at dead race and it looked great.
There's pain involved. I think I've noticed this in pretty much any area. If there's passion involved, it overshadows the pain and actually makes it fun.
Right.
Like it, and people can see it. If you're pursuing something with passion, doesn't matter if it's music, a career, or running. If passion is involved, it looks effortless, and your focus is on the fun. Because overcoming difficult things is fun. Mm-hmm. Whether you finally figured out how to play a song on an instrument you've been learning, or you finally made a breakthrough in whatever research or skill you're trying to attain, or business deal or whatever, like reaching the top of a mountain that you didn't think you could. There's pain and effort involved in that, but you wouldn't do it if you didn't have passion. And then when you accomplish it, and then it's fun. Mm-hmm. And pain is temporary. Maybe that's another definition. What is pain? Pain is temporary. Is it though? Shell for the philosophical
I know.
side.
We need to have like a pin where we can pin things to a different part. I think that, well, that's like a very cliche quote that it bounces around all kinds of sports. And I think I learned this at New Norway in high school, but pain is temporary, pride is forever. And that was always like the thing, like, it's only gonna hurt now, but you can be proud of a effort that pushes through that pain forever.
I'd push back on that too, because if I think back and try and think about the pain, like after winning an ultra or something, you forget how much it hurt until like the next time you're doing it and you're cursing yourself, why am I doing this? This hurts so bad or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, I don't feel any measurable amount of pride. I don't think it's more like a compound confidence in yourself, kind of like, which I guess could come down to a level of pride, but I guess compounding is the way that it's forever. If it's just like I stood for this and I followed it through, it's like you're one step higher, and I'm not sure what ladder or staircase that is, but staircase of pride, I guess. Painted like a rainbow. Can't say that. Is that getting foggy?
I think I'm just thinking about like how you said you didn't have any measurable amount of pride for.
Well, let's look back to when I did Death Race. I did a long write up on Instagram, and I think I said something about the person that you were died on the course, and the person who crossed the finish line was somebody new. And when I think back on writing that and what that race meant to me, it's kind of all blurry or gone. I can't put myself really into that emotion or the drive that I had during that race, or who I was. Like, I can't differentiate in my mind who I was before and who I was after, but I know that experience is compounded into who I am today. So I would say that's maybe that compounding pride. Because if you do stuff that make you feel shitty, like you're compounding shame at that point.
Right.
And you know, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think of is, you know, how much of a failure you are because you didn't finish the dishes last night, or you didn't get that project started, or you skipped your run, like, what a dismal way to start your day. Whereas if you're, you know, maybe I'm not saying that that's something that I'm good at, but and this could get into another topic that I think we actually had that made us think we should do a podcast into why the demographic in running is the way it is. Because that you could make an argument that the demographics you don't see in running get those challenge accomplishment building blocks in their lifestyle through their lifestyle. They don't need to add something else to it. So in that sense, our running is running away from something, because we're avoiding building blocks onto our own character and searching them out in something else. And that's why it's a cult. Dun, dun.
It's really interesting you say that, because I often, like, I always try to, like, with goal setting, I always try and have it a goal that you want to be pulled by and you're excited about inching towards, as opposed to you know, using running as an escape from something that you don't like, or a part of your life that you can't control, so you're just escaping the responsibility of that with running. So I always try to avoid that part of it, but
because it's uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, but then when you're that might be why I try to do those, like, frame my own, you know, running season is usually how I I usually don't jump too far ahead, probably because I'm afraid of success a little bit. That's a whole new thing, a whole nother thing. But but I think that what you were saying there is interesting, because I think maybe I and I maybe have not been admitting it to myself as much as I should have, or should be. But I think I might actually be using running as more of an escape than I think I am. Mm-hmm. Because just the way you were saying that, I'm like thinking about, like, running is a thing that I can kind of control, like the compounding, like progression of it, and you can see tangible.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of life.
You can see tangible, incremental increases in fitness, and it's like but then it's like, I've gotten into that before and probably still do, where it's like, I didn't clean my room again for the third day in a row or whatever, or the dishes are still not put away or cleaned or whatever. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. How can all be connected? I think if you want to look at, people ask all the time, how's Jaden, when's his next big race, or what's he up to? And I'm sure he's made this connection himself, but because he's not on Strava and stuff, and he was actually living in Grand Cache, we don't have any idea how much effort he put into that season. Mm. I have a bit of an idea because I did basically the same training the next year, and I still felt like his performance outshone mine. Mm. And so I was like, and Jaden, not to knock him, has never been faster than me, and he was faster than me that year. But then it was like, you win death race, what's next, right? Yeah. But what I saw in him is he took the building blocks that he learned from that success and put them into his side hustle of Suzuki's, into his job with the construction company, and worked up, I think he was the most highest paid employee on their crew, into his relationship with Anna, who they're now married and celebrating their 1-year anniversary in a couple days here. They just bought a little acreage, and just both of them starting salary jobs and stuff, and running has taken a big back seat. But I see the effort he put into that as being pivotal in his own personal development into becoming an adult. Mm-hmm. A man. One day he'll grow a beard too. Shots fired.
He's not even here to defend himself.
Well, now we'll find out if he listens. Because I honestly don't know if he's ever listened to a podcast.
You might watch this one. Jade, if you're watching,
we'll be waiting for
for
the sassy text.
Yeah. That's funny. This is kind of a running aside, but I'll bring it up because we were kind of talking about the compounding effects of running. And also it's interesting, like, especially when if you have a coach. So let's play a hypothetical, you sign up for coaching with me. I'm going to give you workouts, and workouts typically hurt at least some part.
You're going to provide them with workouts because they compensated you.
Yeah. And so it's like you're going to experience pain a couple times a week, and it's going to compound, boom, 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 until you have an increase in fitness that you're more capable of reaching and achieving the goal that you're set for yourself. An athlete that I was coaching, they said, and this kind of comes from our outdoor ed degree, but my friend Well,
Great combo, dude. Crushed it. Oh, you missed it? Oh. So sorry. I tend to be a bit of a broken wheel. Maybe we can have me on again.
Yeah. We'll have to plan for that. Yeah, so as any endeavor goes, you always mess up the first one.
You could just run a timer, and every 30 minutes you just get up and restart it.
Yeah.
Hold the thought.
That'd be easy, yeah.
Yeah, you can manage that. Do you want to just run through your points?
Do you think we'll probably just get her done?
Yeah. Third. Yeah.
We probably missed at least
the bulk.
The most of our conversation.
Yeah.
Happened after 30 minutes, and so it was like at least another 30, maybe more.
Never to leave this room.
Anyway, recording limits on the camera, but that's what happens when you're just doing what you can with what you got. So here we are. So yeah, we talked about a whole bunch of
Let's
stuff.
link this together.
I'm just gonna kind of. I mean, also though, we haven't even gotten to the bulk of some of the things that I was gonna talk about.
So this is a conversational show, or at least so far. You haven't done. It hasn't been interview style.
I think it's probably gonna be that way for the most part. I'll have like points on what I want to talk about, maybe.
Especially if you get like questions from the viewers.
Yeah.
Not running a live. That's what you should. Can you do that? Just live stream? Figure out how to do that. Just live stream it.
Yeah.
And then you have the whole thing
maybe could do that
on the interweb.
Yeah. Adding that to the ideas of how things may look in the future.
And then your loyal fans can ask questions live.
Let's just see. One of the this is so hard out of the context of everything that we just talked about. So it's like you don't have it now because it wasn't recorded. Anyway,
if we feel like context is needed and we can pull it out of what happened in the last 30 minutes.
So Ty Gordon, who
is your athlete from Lloydminster.
Yeah, who I get to coach. She's very fun to coach. On one of her calls, she was saying how embarrassment can be a form of pain. And
she's not wrong.
What are your first thoughts?
Dude. That's interesting, especially in context to what we were talking about the pride ladder of building like painful steps towards a more confident version of yourself that you're more proud of. The pain of embarrassment, interesting. So, and we're also talking about how much pain is pain in your head. Like you're running up a hill and you think your lungs hurt and your legs hurt, but do they actually hurt? Is it any different than it's just a signal to your brain that you've reached the limit? Or maybe you should, take your hand off the hot element. So in context of that, embarrassment, yeah, it definitely hurts. But it doesn't physically hurt. And if you can learn to manage it, because a person who is resilient to embarrassment, or what is embarrassment? Maybe we should look at that.
Well, I think that there's usually there's things that you can do that are embarrassing, and then I feel like there's an outside kind of something you've done is
external and internal.
But I think the internal is one that probably is more painful. Right. At least in my experience, I feel pretty comfortable in the stereotypical movie things that are embarrassing. It's not,
Yeah, it's easy. It's easier to make light of him and whatever.
Yeah. Versus like if I
cut someone off in traffic, I'm embarrassed as hell.
Yeah, if it's something that I had control over and still
I should have known better.
I should have known better. I had a negative outcome, but I should have performed differently. Whether it's running or if it's just like at work, like I've been embarrassed before when I mess up a task that I should be able to do.
Yeah. You can drop a carton of eggs in a grocery store and I'm probably not going to feel embarrassment.
No.
I, fell on my face finishing death race. I wasn't embarrassed.
No.
But yeah, like I said, I cut a lady off in traffic the other day and I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because like I should have known better, and it was dangerous. Like it could have resulted in an accident, which nobody needs in their life. So yeah, I don't know what other examples of embarrassment. I don't know, and I think there is an argument to be made that it varies significantly by gender. I don't think a lot, like let's say a wardrobe malfunction in an event isn't going to affect a guy as much as it's going to affect a girl.
Yeah.
Although I definitely had nightmares about that. So many, actually. But
interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's psychology behind that.
It must be.
But even in those dreams, like you're problem solving, it's like, well, I guess I'm naked today. How do I go about this with the most confidence possible and make it seem normal?
I think the things that end up being the most painful in like that embarrassment form is knowing how to do something and knowing I should have done something, but then having not done something, and now I'm suffering the consequences of not having done the thing that I knew that I should do and could have done but did not do.
Example.
This is a small example, because we'll stay above water, but getting to 30K at Gorge Waterfall race, 50K, getting to 30 and then just like legs disappeared, that was embarrassing for me. Because like I was in a good position, I was racing so well, but just having like getting to that point and not having any legs left for the last like basically 20K of the race was embarrassing, because I know how to train myself to be able to race really well through 50K. And I had the opportunity to do that. I know how to do that. I did not do that. And so I think it's like almost like it becomes like a part, and I consciously try to not let it get to like a point of shame, because that's not helpful, but like it's just like it's annoying and embarrassing, especially when I set out, I wanted to run fast. I wanted to do like 4.5 hours, and then when you have the skills and the knowledge and the time to be able to set yourself up for that, but then you don't do it, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, like when I put a decal on crooked, or a wrap bubbles up or something. So for even that, like I don't know, and I think you learn to deal like, and maybe learning how to deal with humor, ideally, or maybe that's just what works for us. But being able to deal with the small, embarrassing things steps you up on that ladder to be able to deal with the big, embarrassing things. Like you didn't cancel all your athletes and say, I'm so embarrassed I can't be a coach, and I failed at this race. Not that you would, but you wouldn't, like if you were too prone to embarrassment, you wouldn't have pursued the things you're pursuing anyways. You wouldn't have signed up for a race. It's embarrassing to sweat in public for a large majority of the population. I have no stats to back that up. I'm just assuming based on the majority of the population that I see. And with good reason. It's a vulnerable thing.
I think that's another reason, and
I've done it sometimes where I like put a goal out there like pretty specifically, but it's way safer and it makes you more comfortable and easier to accept when you don't reach the goal, when you don't tell anyone about it. Like I didn't really tell anyone that that many people, I think, that or actually no, I told some people like my range. I was like, if I have a great race, 4.5 hours. If I struggle a bit, 5 I'd be stoked with. But it's like, that's a safe range. Like I wanted 4.5, like when I signed up for the race, and then I knew all the things. But then along the line, I got embarrassed about not sticking to the training that I knew I had to do in order to get 4.5. I did 5:03. Which even then, I was like, I couldn't go under 5 hours.
Yeah, couldn't even hit the B goal, the things go array version of the race.
Anyway. I think too, though, like I didn't see that as a failure for not having got that goal. I was embarrassed about like just not preparing in the way that I'd wanted to. That's what I was personally, internally embarrassed about, mainly for myself. Like,
but nobody was projecting that on you.
No one was projecting that on me, right. And I didn't think, so it just affected me internally. But I didn't see that race as a failure either, because, and even during it, because I knew we were going to be doing a podcast talking about pain afterwards. When I got to that point, I felt like I should be able to push harder than I was. And I was like...
I often feel guilty for that as well.
Yeah, and I was like...
Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to push harder, but I can't right now. Like, I'm not...
Yeah.
And then that actually comes back to your only limitations are those you give yourself permission to have.
Right.
Because I just gave myself permission. I'm saying, it's okay, dude. Don't be so hard on yourself. Today, your body says this is the limit.
Yes.
And that's... permission to have. And then I think also you saying that you don't, like, you were embarrassed at the time or whatever, but it didn't like change the way you did anything. You gave yourself permission for that result. You released yourself of the embarrassment by accepting peace from that ownership of
and I think in some ways, like, if you the opposite of giving yourself that permission is like a guy like Zach Miller. Like, he will not give himself permission, and he will run into like a pretty significant hamstring injury, like where it's like ascended up the back of his leg and it's purple by the end of the race. Like that's a next level amount of like, no, I'm going hard.
Like I'm pretty certain I broke my toe and I ripped my sock off and like, dang it, I just gotta go be by myself for a while because this is embarrassing. Because my toe doesn't even look fine. And then 30 minutes later, it feels like my shoe's full of blood, and then it turns out there is some damage done. But
Also, I think when we were talking about that race, I think that was in the missed part. But that was another thing the next day that I kind of switched in my head, because during the race I was like, I should be able to push through this pain. Like I've kind of always thought that I've not been as good at, like, had a lower pain tolerance than you or Jaden, and not been able to push through hard running like you two have.
Says the guy who ran nationals with strep throat.
That was a different type of band. I feel like, I don't know.
Ran a personal PB, and what, 3 of your teammates beat you with their personal bests of the season?
2.
2 of them?
But yeah.
Incredible.
And thanks.
Give yourself permission to accept a compliment. Okay. Be at peace with it, my man. Pain after the race.
Oh, yeah. The next day when I was like, I could barely stand up, I was like, oh, it was warranted. Like, I was pushing through, like, fatigue that was far beyond what I was prepared for.
Did that spark more embarrassment, because then it more confirmed that you didn't do the
It more confirmed that it definitely did that. So it was probably a combo because like it made me more appreciate that I was pushing through, like I was pushing the limiter, like I was at my limit for what I prepared.
It sucked because you were there.
So I think maybe amplified the embarrassment of that internal embarrassment of like I knew how to prepare for this and I didn't. But then kind of de-escalated my thoughts of I'm not good at pushing through pain because I did, because there was nothing else to give that day, like there was nothing that left, so that it made me feel good even in spite of that. So but then I think that just brought me back to and kind of confirms how I think most of us race, like we race to our fitness that day. We don't race to some like idea of what we could be given that perfect training block or that perfect preparation, because I think that just like is going to set you up for being disappointed in the outcome. You know, like if I went and ran an 8K cross country race and expected myself to just be able to run 26 minutes or whatever like I did at that PB race, like I'm gonna just have a terrible time.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be down on myself.
If you think you're running the perfect race, you're not. This is probably in the part that was missed too, because I referenced a race I did a few weeks ago, the first one in Oneee's cross country series, and last year I kind of fluke won it, and this year the course was in reverse. I didn't really remember. I thought it was way harder and just felt like garbage the whole time. Finished the race, figured I was like 4 minutes slower than the year previous. I think I got 5th, and then I looked up the race from last year. I was like a minute and a half faster this year, and so that was kind of like, oh shoot, like yeah, it felt terrible, but it felt terrible because I was at the line, and obviously not slower than last year. I had another relation to that too that suddenly just escaped me. I think it was linked to embarrassment in performance. Another question?
Let's see. Before this point, I think one of the things that we kind of missed in the after the recording limit was when we were talking, like we were kind of talking about like building like the ladder of
Pride
or confidence
in yourself.
Confidence in yourself.
Version of yourself.
Gets
performance
built
level.
as you endure these little snippets of pain or training. Like it doesn't have to be pain necessarily. And I had an athlete who this spring like really didn't, like mentally he didn't want to go for the run because he was like, this, I don't know, it just seems like a hard day at work or whatever. But then he just laced up and he felt like his legs just kind of took over and knew what to do, and they just kind of carried him through, and that was that. And I think that so I wrote down that legs have a knowledge of pain, or they have a knowledge of they have like a memory of resilience or a memory of resistance to like pain or to fatigue. Fatigue is like the thing that we are trying to build resistance to in running training, and so they can kind of have their own memory of
what they've been through before,
of what they've done before.
Yeah, I definitely think
it's like
that's
compounding.
True, and that reminds me of Joseph at the half marathon this weekend or last weekend, because when he came through our aid station at 9K, I was like, he was way further back than I thought, because he's a busy guy too. He's on his feet all day with his job. He's got 3 little kids of his own. He's a busy guy, but he's been running a fair bit, and I thought I expected him to be further up, and I bugged him, ribbed him, like, what's going on? Were you late to the race? And he was like, yes, 18 minutes. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's not so bad. And then once all the runners were through and we packed up, we went across the river to try and meet him on the other part of the course, and we caught him walking. And he had just hit a low spot at like 13K or whatever, which is like we used to call him like 13K Joe, because he would lock up at 13K all the time. It was like one of his first runs ever was 13K. And but he said he set a Strava PR for second fastest 10K in the first 10K, just trying to catch up with the race, and didn't eat or drink anything. And then, which wouldn't be a problem if you were used to it. But I didn't realize, as we're like, after 16K or whatever, like his walk breaks became more frequent and running was more labored, and we're trying to get electrolytes in him, and then I kind of just asked him, like, what's the farthest you ran before? I don't remember what he said, but it wasn't 21. So this half marathon was the furthest he had ever ran, and I mean, he was in pain, like crying out on the trail. Like, he would try and run, his leg would lock up, and he would cry out in pain. Like, it was uncomfortable to be around. But
no, it wasn't.
But I mean, he got it done, and then I haven't spoke to him since, but I wonder what he leveled up. But also, like, the memory is, he didn't have that memory in his legs. They didn't know, like you were saying, like, and it was so funny because, like, at a road race marathon or event, with the cups and the excitement and the cheering and whatever, he would get to those and he would be so amped he would run straight through and get nothing. And we were just jogging along with him at that point, basically being pack mule, and I'd like be grabbing as many cups of the goo as I could carry and like run up to him like, Joe, drink this, eat this gel, like trying to revive him, and it didn't seem to do any good. But like you said, like his legs were probably just clapped out. Like that's it. They didn't know they could do any more than that. Whereas you and me, we have a huge limit. Like it used to be like when we would do the St. Albert 10 mile run, I didn't think I could run 10 miles. I'd have to run 10 miles before the event to even be confident I could toe the line. And I kind of took that mentality into ultras, but after a while, like you're not gonna run 125 just to prove you can do it before the event. Like you do that, and like it's counterproductive to do it. But then also, I'm just about done reading Rob's book, Training for Ultra, and talking about that 200 mile mindset, and how they say like you basically can be born again so many times, a brand new man within a race of that length, because your legs just kind of remember how to do the thing.
Yeah. I think like a big caveat for people observing us in our like relatively low mileage training, and then doing fairly well at races, is that we have way more muscle memory or like leg memory and experience of pushing through that fatigue or just dealing with that fatigue, or with that creative process, which I think was all missed.
The creative process of problem solving and working within limits, but also the relationship with not pain, but pain as a signal.
Yes.
And the same, like, it's not physical pain we're feeling when we're racing. It may not be physical pain we're feeling while we're racing, but it's a signal from our legs, our lungs, our bodies in general saying, this is it, stay behind this line, you shall not pass. And that feels like pain just because it's a signal telling you. So if we know where that signal is and we stay within it, we're creative to solve the problems around it, or maybe also I think so much of it is mental. You just know you can do it. If you, whether, the Henry Ford, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Is that Henry
think
Ford?
you can? I don't know if it's Henry. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, which we also talked about in the previous part, and slightly different. Or I guess it was when we were talking about giving yourself permission. So if you give yourself permission to think you can, you can. Because nothing will stop you unless you give yourself permission. Which in a way it's kind of circular. Because if you reach, because we were talking about blindness and, it's unfair, like if you don't, but you will, if it's a physical reality, you will give yourself permission.
Yeah.
If you're like, I cannot run a 5-minute kilometer, you just gave yourself permission to have that limitation.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't even think about it as a limitation and you're just happy running a 6-minute kilometer, and then one day you run a 5:45 and then a 5:30, and then maybe in 3 years you run a 5-minute, and you may have never even thought about it. Or you said, I'm going to run a 5-minute kilometer one day, and you stop at nothing. I've known of other people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to run a 40-minute 10K or whatever, and then never train. No, you're not.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's an unhealthy confidence and goal setting too, but I don't know, I could get into the psychology of that, but I don't really have the expertise.
I'm gonna camera check. According to my watch. 26 minutes. 27.
A wrap up?
Well, I didn't even get to.
I think we're gonna do a part 2
Repeat guest.
with James.
Can I be a regular?
Pretty much. Yeah, he will and can. I had on here yes and, which I don't know if you remember that from
Life changing.
improv. James did improv in high school, like on the improv team, and went to like improv provincials.
4 years in a row.
4 years in a row.
Lost every time.
They lost
That's
every
how-
time.
That's how I learned about bureaucracy.
I remember being in the. It was oddly, like thinking about it now, it was like kind of like a TV show of like, I was in the crowd watching like my brother lose out in these improv games every year. Anyway, but then
how's that possible? They nailed every single game and everybody laughed harder at them than anybody else.
Yeah, I always
They
thought
hit
were
all the
better.
judging criteria.
Yeah.
The only thing that didn't matter is they weren't from X art school with X teacher who mattered.
Yeah. Name them.
I've probably given myself permission to not give a shit. So it's kind of gone. Although I know one of them was named the Flaming Escargot. That was their
Their team name.
I think they were Notre Dame from somewhere, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
Anyway.
Doesn't matter. We had fun. We learned about it, and yes, and still has relevance in my life to this day.
Yeah. Basically, it's like, and this is if you watch any, I would say, ultra running film about anyone that's doing really well, it's like they don't, when they get to the hard part, or the part where things go south, they accept that it's happening, and
Where do we go from here?
what's the solution? What's the workaround? What's the creative solution? What's the, how do we go through it versus turn from it? So it's kind of like a
Driving forward, not looking
reality, gas pedal through. Yeah. And I think that's like, that's how you get through workouts. That's how you get through a hard week of training. It's like, yes, work was crazy today, and
I'm gonna do this
committed
workout.
to this goal. I'm gonna drink a glass of water. I'm gonna do the warm up and see if I can push into the workout. I think if you don't have some of that perspective, honestly, you get, and I have it written down, you're quick to resign when an obstacle
comes along.
Think about this. If you don't follow through on your training, and or you give yourself permission to, and there's reasons. It might be unsafe for your health. You might be bad smoke, or you might have a cold, or whatever reason where you shouldn't do that workout fully. But in general, if you give yourself permission not to do the thing, when you get into the race and all of a sudden like the hill is longer than you think it is, or it starts raining, or you grabbed the wrong pair of socks on race day, or you forgot to lube, or any of these things, it's not going to make or break your race. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing that you deal with. Mm-hmm. Because you're prepared. You've prepared yourself. You've taken those rungs up the ladder to not cop out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like one of the biggest, I think, tangible signs that I can see from a coaching's perspective on whether or not someone's going to be able to problem solve through those points in a race is when I'm getting a text during the week or a comment on Training Peaks that's like, hey, work went late, I'm doubling up tomorrow, or the smoke outside is nuts, so I'm on my bike inside today, or like they've altered the training to match their circumstance, mm-hmm. but they're adapting and doing what they can. Because that to me is like, when they get into that race and they face that obstacle, they're not going to fold. They're not going to be like, well, the heat of the day took me out, on to the next one. They're going to be like, okay,
there's a hot one, extra water.
Creek, get me,
Throwback story. I don't know what grade you were in. I want to say like 9. Hardesty. 8 maybe. Joedy forgets his shoes.
Oh yeah.
And this race is like hours away, and it's short. It's like at that age, I think it's like 2.5K or something.
Yeah.
Cross country race. Joedy has no shoes. You borrowed them from Emily Braun.
Was it Emily's shoes or Larissa's, her sister?
She might have been borrowing her from her sister. So Joedy races in 2 small girls' shoes.
Oh man.
For this race.
Punched up.
And did you win it, or you got second?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't win, but
we should check the footage. I think that was the year that you got second behind Creasy.
Was it that year?
I think so.
We have footage of that.
Yeah.
That might have been actually that year.
So yeah, that's dipping back, and I can't think of a more modern example. I was thinking about this in some of our previous conversations as far as placing limitations on yourself to increase creativity. Jaden ran over half a death race in road shoes.
Yeah. Like
full-on road shoes. And what it did for him was made road shoes his go-to. I won Sinister 50K last year in those same road shoes. And
the same exact pair. No, same model.
Yeah. And I had zero regrets wearing them. But I even remember finishing the race and someone like, oh, he just did that in those shoes? I have those. Those are not good shoes for this course. And it's just like, talking about that, like kind of like that little bit of pride pat on the back thing. It's just like, yeah, I put that limitation on myself and I won the race. So probably wasn't the worst choice for me.
But it's like, I think more like, especially in running, people will put a limit, and this is funny too because if you look back into historical running, you'll see this farmer in gumboots who wins this multi-day race. It's like, or like the older shoes, like Walmart shoes, you can are fine. But people put limitations on themselves on like gear, for example.
How many carbon plate shoes are there out there?
Yeah, and like I want a pair, but like I don't need it.
That extra 10 seconds isn't worth it.
Yeah, it's a shiny rock that I want to hold. But I think too, like that becomes kind of the excuse that people will fall to. I think.
Blame it on the equipment.
Yeah, I mean that's the age old. Blame it on the equipment. Oh man,
I don't know, from our childhood, like the Big Green or something.
No. It's Levi from Airplane Up in the Sky.
Oh, that's a home
Speaking
video.
of lost footage,
Oh,
we filmed this whole
Nightmares.
day on this rail, and Joedy did the gnarliest tricks I've had ever seen.
I did a cab 270 switch up 270 out, which if you know snowboarding, and I did that on a handrail.
It was
and I
incredible.
14,
It was
15 maybe.
like it was a low sauce handrail, but it was cool, and like a 20-footer, like it was good. And something happened to that footage. Never seen it again. That entire session completely wiped from existence. And so we went back later in like spring. We had to like shovel snow in and stuff, and to try to redo this. But in the meantime, Joedy had gotten a new snowboard, and we had switched bindings around and whatever. He couldn't do it, and he was so frustrated with it.
If you ever
And our older friend Levi was just like, blame it on the equipment.
and Levi won't watch this probably, hopefully, but
Oh, we'll send it to him.
we'll clip it.
Rachel will watch it. Big fan.
I was just trying to defend myself just now, but I'm not even going.
14-year-old Joedy
If you ever get,
is embarrassed.
but like if you you know what? I'm not salty about it. Whatever, dude. I'm just gonna say there's a reason you don't lace up a brand new pair of shoes for your race.
Yeah,
Right?
totally. Well, we
That's
talked about
like-
this.
we're not trying to
We talked
blame
about this too.
equipment,
Like I brought up the sock thing. If you're gonna wear, like, if you accidentally, sometimes when I'm doing a quick workout, like under 45 minutes, I'll just come home from work, quickly put on shorts, go do the workout, and forget that your underwear are cotton. And that creates a not okay situation.
Yeah.
But when you do those situations, periodically in training, and you just do it anyways and move on, if you're forget that there's a reason you don't wear a certain pair of shorts on race day, or you forget to put some nut butter on or something, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It just hurts later.
Yeah, and I always
Consequences.
it's funny because I always tell athletes no new things on race day.
But also, why
But in
not?
some ways, that kind of limits them to, if
The
they're in a
same
hole, then they're like, well, I can't have these pickles because I haven't tried that before. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
all you have is goo gels. I've never
Yeah.
tried one.
so I might have to revise.
Be comfortable with. Well, and you.
I
do
think
it.
it's a rule of thumb though for the most part. It's like, you don't want to be doing something drastically different than you've ever done before on race day. So
Example: brand new shoes, or
a
running
brand
with
new
a
pair of
pack,
shoes, or
something.
you've never
ran
used
with a
poles
pack.
in your life.
Yeah, don't do that.
Things like that. I think that's outside the realm of adapting to yes and situations where you stumble into an aid station bonked and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna have handfuls of trail mix with raisins, even though I hate raisins with my entire life. Throwback to Sinister 7 Leg 3 when I was 19.
Or if you're used to feeling like no liquid calories, like just water. I learned this kind of the hard way. Last year, I was running with a guy, and then I waited for him at the aid station while I'm eating M&Ms. And he's loading up on tailwind, and I didn't. And like 5 minutes later, he gets a second wind, and he's gone. And I'm like, what's going on? Why can't I run? And then the next day, I did the shorter event, and I was just like, totally crashed again. Can't figure out what's going on. And then finally, I'm like, man, my knees are hurting. I feel like I'm dehydrated, but I can't be because I have enough water. And then all of a sudden, it dawned on me that I needed electrolytes. Got to the next aid station. They couldn't really get me a mix, but I got just enough tailwind in me, and it was just like a new man.
I'm a new man!
That's like 2 Alex
Quote it.
Petrosky quotes in one. Because the knees hurting thing, I knew. Shut
Dude,
up.
it's amazing how much I've thought about that.
Oh, I think about it all the time. It's like my go-to. So now it's like, well, maybe I need more salts in my life. Like,
Have you ever asked?
there's something?
Have you ever asked Alex how he knows that that's dehydration?
No, I just believe it because
It's Alex.
it's Alex B, man.
Yeah. Okay.
He knows. He wouldn't see because how confident he says it. But I dropped out of the race as well. No, it happened before that. My joints were just hurting, and that's dehydration, so I just pulled out of the race. I was too far gone. Which also is a bad example of not going with the flow and making adjustments. But with his experience, he would maybe know that it's not worth it to make the adjustments due to the consequences later.
Yeah.
So that's where discretion and you should always have your own discretion. Like, don't outsource your discretion to somebody else. Like, yeah, a proper aid station volunteer is going to kick your ass to get out of there. Like, you shouldn't be here. But sometimes that's not the right call for you.
Yeah. It depends.
Next cue.
Okay, there's kind of one more piece that we'll probably touch on a little bit here, and then we'll save the next bit for episode 2 with James on this topic, because there's just not enough time.
Why are you limiting me to 2?
Well, no, I'm just
we're gonna get more creativity out if we limit it to 2, or
okay. Well, it's called the Good Pain Podcast, but not every episode with you will be so focused necessarily.
Oh, we'll do event specific, or
yeah, it's kind of a wide open oyster. This little thing that it's just happening now.
Yeah, outside of the border, but also confined by the limitations.
Tell us more about your logo design.
Dang, yo.
Okay, the last thing we'll talk about is, and it might combo back to some stuff that we talked about in the missing footage, but perceived versus actual pain, and connected to that, high perception equaling high tolerance. And I want to talk about that because with pain, I'm not sure that is necessarily the case, but
like if somebody interprets they're in a lot of pain but they're actually not, perception versus tolerance.
Let's start with the perceived versus actual.
Or maybe
I think
maybe it's directly correlated. Maybe high pain tolerance is directly correlated with low perception of pain. Like it's all in your head. Everybody physically feels the same amount of pain. It's how they react to it.
Yeah,
that's extreme.
Yeah, I think that it's similar to like risk, perceived risk versus actual risk. Like usually the average person's perceived risk in most situations that you can dream up is way higher than what the actual risk is.
Right. Like for example, on the Livingstone Range, if the risk of if we fall, the risk is death.
Yeah.
But if you're not gonna fall, like that's not even an option for you, then the risk doesn't seem as bad.
Yeah.
And I've always viewed this ever since I was a little kid as walking down a sidewalk. You don't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
If a sidewalk was 100 feet in the air, you'd be scared shitless.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to correlate that, like, because we used to, like, before parkour was a thing, we would do that type of stuff. But it's like, yeah, I could walk on something super narrow that's right on the ground, but the higher it gets, it needs to be wider and wider to make you comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's in your head. That's perceived.
Yeah.
Now, it's also a survival mechanism because it recognizes the higher consequence of failure. Mm-hmm. Like if you are, there's zero consequence of walking on the edge of a 2x4 on the ground.
Yeah.
Because your margin for error is very small, but also
there's no consequence. Yeah. Whereas the higher you get, the higher the consequence goes, and your brain innately knows this. But we also have this creative part of our brain that can, catastrophize worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And that's what we're afraid of.
Right. I think that, and I mean, in a mountain setting, like, your margin for error for most of the Livingstone is it's not super small. Like, it's pretty big. Like, there's crux areas where your margin gets smaller.
But you assess, you straddle, you.
But the main thing that makes that margin higher consequence is the exposure, where it's the same thing. Like if it was on flat ground, it would be nothing. Like you would jump across it. But given that factor, then you just slow down and add precision and focus to it, and it's not like, for us, our perceived risk in those situations is very low.
And I would perceive the highest risk of that was actually just the
heat
sun, the heat exposure, and the duration and ability to pack enough water is the biggest risk for us personally on that particular adventure, which is probably in the cut footage. So wait until October when the film drops. I was also gonna link that to feelings of anxiety, like for example, Woody's marathon was canceled this weekend, but the shorter races, half marathon and under, continued on, and the smoke actually was much better that day than anticipated, and everybody that I talked to was like, yeah, it really didn't affect me that bad, and I was like, yeah, I feel like the anxiety of it, the potential of it affecting you is worse than the actual effect, at least in the short term. There obviously could be some long-term health effects, but your body's generally pretty well equipped to handle that. So yeah, just the anxiety, and then that's the fear of heights. It's the anxiety that's crippling, not the actual thing. Even on my trail in the river valley, Blaze helped me blaze it. But he's scared of heights. So there are certain parts of it that, like, even when we were doing it the first time, he opted for a higher route. And he was joking with me this week, like, oh yeah, like if I misstep on that, I'll end up in the river. Yeah, but no.
He's like stating an outcome, which might make
because literally the river is like so far down there, and then there's like all this crushed rock that you have to get through. And if you're afraid that that's how it might, you're going to dial back and you're going to go slow and whatever. But I've been running it quite a bit, and I've had I've slipped dozens of times. And like the most that happens, you fall into the hill, you slide like 3 to 10 feet, and then like you slow down or re-go, or you're going to slide, so you don't just freeze and let yourself slide. You keep moving while you're sliding, and you kind of just like get yourself back to where you're going, or get yourself closer to something you can physically grab a hold of, and that comes as a result of not having any anxiety associated with a possible exaggerated outcome. I definitely have other examples of how that works, but we don't need to go into that.
Yeah. I think in trail running scenarios where slipping happens, people that are engaged and stay engaged in movement have better outcomes. It's like winter driving every time.
Like it's stopping and changing direction is going to get you in trouble.
Yeah. Anyway,
and look where you're going.
Yeah.
And that comes down to performance anxiety too. I mentioned this the other day. There's some medical theories that suggest that sports injuries are results of performance anxiety, where you're not confident that you can fulfill a task. Therefore, a part of your subconscious lets go, and you become weak and you roll your ankle or whatever.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about that recently.
Yeah.
It was like, if you're so anxious about rolling your ankle on this,
probably going to do it. If you never
more likely to anyway.
Our good friend Doug, he's kind of an example. Well, although he's kind of fun, and he's got a history of he blew out his knee running downhill, I think, or trying to stop himself running downhill. So now he just lets loose. Whereas me, I'm like, I cannot go that fast downhill without fear of like things happening. But that's his solution. I think that's a lot of things. Like if it's in your head that this could happen, it's way more likely. And you can get into the new agey vibe stuff about it too. Lots of correlations, but yeah, if you think something could happen like that, it's way more likely to happen than if you never even thought about it. You could flip it around and saying, well, then you're just being ignorant of risk, and that's when you grab a hold of a very hot pedo tube. Burnt hand story? Did that get on there?
It's all blurred. The high perception, the high tolerance. I think not. So that idea, I was thinking back to a book I read, or it was an audiobook that I listened to, but Matt Fitzgerald, who's wrote a bunch of books on training and endurance sport. And the book that I was reading was How Bad Do You Want It? And he was talking about a lot about the psychology of effort. But he was saying expectation, I think is the word that I was looking for. Like if you have high expectations of pain, you're gonna have a higher tolerance of it. And in that book, he was talking.
It's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt.
You're going into it willingly.
Yeah, you're gonna have a higher tolerance and be able to handle more of it.
Which, how many times have we started something like, this is gonna hurt?
Yeah, every time. Especially for the big things.
And then does it actually hurt? Like, is there actual pain involved?
Well, in that book, he was saying that when you expect things to be very, very hard, they always typically... Sorry, that was just a funny. I said an absolute and then backed it up with a sometimes maybe. If the conditions are just right.
Way to cover that.
Yeah.
You could be a politician.
Typically, if you have that expectation going in, it's gonna be easier. On like when you're in it, it's gonna feel easier, and you're gonna be more equipped to handle like how much it is. And I think that's why people that go back and do the same race for a second time, like if we look at, and it doesn't happen every year, but our friend Alex has done the death race who knows how many times.
A bunch, half a dozen maybe.
And he knows how hard it is, and he's improved on his time a lot. So he doesn't every time, but like he's ran under 13 hours.
Sometimes it's harder than others,
and sometimes it's harder than others. But he like knows how hard it's going to be, and so he
changes the variables too. Like Jaden's year, he was doing the thing I possibly mentioned in the dead air about running a race solely reliant on aid stations.
Yeah.
Or crewless, or trying something different.
But yeah, it gives you that. Yeah, it's another rung.
Yeah,
those experiences.
And I wonder if it varies by personality much, because I'm thinking like if you think something is going to be easy, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, this is I mean way over, and I think that's overwhelming. Then the anxiety. Then the anxiety
happens. Then it's easy to.
Those are the people who are having a panic attack at like some minor down climb section.
Yeah, and that's where it's easy to put up whatever excuse, or I don't even necessarily want to say excuse, because reason is a better word, to not complete or not to continue.
Yeah. Like you've given yourself permission not to enter that race because you know that it exceeds your mountain competence or your distance that you can do or whatever.
And dare I say this, I would say for your typical...
Hashtag controversial.
I would... No. I'm just going to talk about road runners. Gotta be careful.
What are you saying, they're sensitive? Or the trail runners don't want you talking about...
I would just say that, like, this is completely theoretical, but I would say that road runners that have found success in road running, personal success, whatever that's meant for them, and then they think that trail running is going to be easy for them to like clean up the podium because they're fast at road running, and then they do a trail run and it's really hard, and they don't, and then they...
Which is interesting because we judge ourselves against road runners and then go into trail runners and like, where is everybody?
Yeah. Anyway, and then I feel like they're more likely to, stop at an obstacle when things are hard because they think it's going to be easy. That could be the example.
Or they think it's harder than
We'd
it
have
is.
to do a study.
I also think that there's a mental hang up with road runners because they're so pace focused. Like they get their gratification from a number on their watch, whereas we get our gratification from the fun we're having crossing the terrain that we're doing.
Which is like, and
and you're running at a slower pace, so you get more smiles per mile.
Oh, let's go. It's funny because I came from like track cross country, you know, and I did a few road races, but mainly track cross country. It was like I was pace, like that's what gave me that like hit of oh yeah, and I still enjoy like the pursuit of trying to run fast and run paces, but it's totally a different world of conception to your identity within running.
Yeah, you'd still choose to link up a few mountain roads with friends than race a 26-minute 8K. 26 is pretty quick.
That's fast.
What's your best?
I think it's 27 low, I think. What's that? Nationals.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, I felt like I had asthma the whole time. I couldn't breathe very good.
Remember, hyperventilation is key. Quote the film.
I don't even know. Is that the Attitude Over Altitude one?
No, it's the Grizzly vlog.
Grizzly vlog. Right.
Just decided this right now. I'm gonna make a vlog. Look for cameos of our friends throughout. I thought it was 23 was when you 23 and it's 53.
That's what I was thinking too. Don't know what sentence just got cut off, but
it was hilarious.
You might not know. It was James quoting
count on that.
Precise quotes from old films. Sweet. So with our little bumble,
we have 7 minutes left to get this done today. 6.
With our little bumble today, we locked out probably like 40 minutes at least, 45, I think.
Probably
realistically.
Probably the meat and potatoes of the conversation.
It was kind of the meat and potatoes, and I am sorry. I'm sorry to you guys who are still listening. The others, well.
Hope you come back.
Yeah.
Wait, they're not even here to listen to it. Oh, shucks. I guess we can only care about the people who are still here.
I care about
Thank you, come again.
Speak for yourself, dude. I care for
You don't want people to come again to your podcast? Like, comment, subscribe, suggest guests.
Yes, suggest guests.
Let us know what does and doesn't work.
Do you even
no one judges you hard.
Yeah. Do you even want a video? Did we put this up for nothing? Or do you just want like to hear voices?
You would need that for your cover thing on the streaming platforms or whatever.
Right. What else? If anyone has knowledge on how to
seeking producer
put this on the internet,
preferably if your name is Jamie.
Jamie? Oh yeah,
producer.
Yeah. I just want to be able to say, Jamie, can you bring that up?
Looking for a sponsor for a screen that's screen shared to a computer that's connected to a Jamie.
What else? So actually, if you want to,
we're probably gonna have like 10 views on this.
If all 10 of you want to be on the show.
No. If you know someone who wants to advertise their stuff to 10 people.
Can you see this?
Help us, and help us upgrade our.
We drink more than fluorinated water, have you know?
Drink mango juice. To upgrade equipment. I don't know. That could be fun.
Because this light is borrowed.
For the
Jody's camera has a 30-minute limit.
We have a 30-minute
He doesn't know how to put it on the internet.
I need a fancy thing. I don't know how to upload this to like an audio podcast thing. How do you do that?
I don't know. Google it.
I'm going to call some friends just so I can talk to them. What else should we talk about at the end?
Outro music?
Outro music. Intro music. We'll get that sorted eventually. Maybe before this episode.
Hopefully. You can do that
Do you think?
this week.
Okay.
Just
This
take just take the pain suggestion
me?
I had. Play it
Okay.
cool. Record it in the
But
studio.
I have friends that are musicians. I'd rather
Make them play it.
Okay. That's a better idea.
Unless they won't do it for free.
What?
Unless you can
Oh,
dude, get somebody on here and talk
fucking
about
pain.
pain in
Yeah.
your fingers.
Tell me about the time your fingers were bleeding as you were
How do you
laying your heart on the line, writing songs deep.
Then
in
that
the
comes
night.
into the whole conversation about passion and music and stuff. That was probably part of the part that was cut.
Dude.
Pain, what was it? Pain doesn't, what was the conclusion? Pain doesn't matter, or is eclipsed by passion or something? I don't know. What, but a vapor.
Just butt vapor.
So yeah, Joedy.
What
is
else?
Matt, how long do you guys want to listen to a show? Should he edit things down to an hour and a half? I think I like an hour and a half.
You like an hour and a half? Yeah. What's the ideal length?
I think if you are doing an interview style, 30 minutes. If you're doing long format, hour and a half. If you're doing if you have a committed audience who will literally listen to anything, no limit.
I mean,
I judge Joe Rogan podcast by if it's more than 3 hours, it's worth listening to.
Yeah, I like that. Just the idea of having long conversations, and I like having long conversations.
And the idea of people giving a crap about what you have to say.
Yeah, the other side of that coin is that I'm a one-man show, so I gotta edit all that. I don't have.
But that's why you don't
four
care. You just
producers.
put it out there with all the blemishes.
Yeah,
Once you get it,
I'm not gonna.
You should be streaming this to the internets right now.
Yeah, that's the next level. I think there's a plug-in for that on the camera. I don't know. I need more cords. There's not enough cords on the floor for this to be a legit operation. You need to be tripping on them. I won't show you the floor because we got pillows and blankets all over it.
Does the room still sound echoey?
Just so we're not in this echo chamber. Let's see.
Like, comment, subscribe. Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. I don't think you like podcasts. Oh, but this will be on YouTube. So
What do you rate it? Or give us a 5-star rating on all your streaming platforms.
Google.
Practice your pitch for your whatever you're selling.
Yeah, I need to work on that because I don't like selling.
Here at the Good Pain Podcast, we drink only quality nothing.
Yeah.
I like the way nothing makes me
If you
feel.
want to be a guest on the podcast, you can look forward to not having a refill of water, no bathroom breaks, and half the stuff you talk about will get cut. So, send your suggestions my way and we'll have a chit chat. All right. Let's
Bonus
not talk
points
about
if the
stuff.
critiques hurt or painful.
Yeah.
Cut me deep.
I'll cut you with kindness. Okay, well, we'll send James home because he's gotta...
It's literally midnight. Just turned over.
He's gotta be a dad in the morning.
Yep. And then try and be an employee after that.
And I gotta work tomorrow too on the water. So perfect.
Sweet. Good stuff. I'll do it again. Got more. I have thumb anxiety right now. Wait, what's it called? What's it called when you're insecure about your